Now, I've made a video film of Heathfield from 1900 to 1992, and it's made up from old postcards and photographs and intermingled with actual video film of what it's like today, just to remind you. We start off on the west side of the High Street with the old lady letting out a cuckoo out of her basket, and this originated, of course, from the old cuckoo fair that used to be held around about the 14th of April every spring, and held at the Half Moon pub, Cade Street, now called the Jack Cade. We'll go along first to Tilsmore Road corner, and where Caffin's Garage is on the corner, and this is what it used to look like. And there's no Caffin's Garage there at all, of course, and the building on the right hand side here is a little pub called the Welcome Stranger, long ago pulled down, of course, and you can see there's not a lot of buildings on the right hand side. Now we're looking along the High Street at a different photograph, and we are looking at the Heathfield ironmongers on our left, and the little hut by the ironmongers used to be a saddler's. Now, if you look along the High Street here, you will see that most of the shops and premises have all got hedges or fences in front of them, and of course the old horse and carts are always on the roads. I see there's one or two telephone poles about. Now here's a later photograph, and we have now got the garage on the corner, which was built by Mr. Charlie Ryder. He also built the building, the tall building behind the garage here, which was built as a cinema, silent when it was first started, of course, and the upper floor was taken over as the Freemasons' Lodge. There's another horse and cart in the front there, and you can just see the globes on the old petrol pumps outside the garage, and an old gas lamp. This must have been one of the earliest gas lamps. Now opposite the garage here we get this shop here, which is Priest's, the baker's today. Now this used to be a Mr. Southgate's building, and it was built in 1899. He was an upholsterer, and then it was taken over by Mr. Bert Dilly, who built a bakehouse at the back and turned it into a baker's shop, and then of course Priest's had it. Now we've come to Tilsmore Road again, and we're going up alongside the fire station, which is Mill Road. And as you can see, Mill Road looks quite like an old country lane in those days, not much like it is today. And of course if you go up there you come to the big car park, which is behind the fire station. Now here's a more modern shot of the High Street, almost taken from the corner of Caffin's, and there's the baker's shop, which is Priest's shop, and then next door to that there used to be a wooden building called the Brotherhood and Sisterhood Hall, and then next door to that was another little wooden hut, the one with the sunblind down, and that was a bootmaker's and shoe repairers by the name of Mr. Wheel, and later on it was taken over by Mr. Parsons. Now of course on that plot is the doctor's surgery, and so that's changed quite a bit. Of course underneath this road is the old railway tunnel, and the property where the huts are, of course used to be the railway property, and they had to pay rent to have those buildings on there. Now we've come along the High Street a little farther, looking like it is today, and we turn left where that car's just gone, and we should come to Stratfield's Road. Now Stratfield had a premises there, which was built in 1896, and Mr. Stratfield was a wheelwright, and he called himself the Heathfield Coach Works, and he used to paint and redo all these horse-drawn coaches. There's one standing outside there now, and then later on, as time went by, he started doing up motor vehicles, etc. Now, today, it's Portman's Building Society, and doesn't look anything like old Mr. Stratfield's place used to look like. Now, if we turn to the right, we come to these shops here, which the first shop on the left-hand side of the picture is the Oxfam Shop, and this used to be run by a Miss Atkinson, and next she had a ladies' clothes shop, and next door a Mr. Atkinson ran the ironmonger's shop, and you can see the old bins and things outside. And farther along, of course, is Aries. You can just see the balcony of Aries in the centre of the picture. And then the hut in the far distance used to be a Mr. Hickmore, and he had a man's hairdressing. Now, over the other side of the road, these shops are still here today, of course, and haven't changed much. And Mr. Hart and Co. used to be a greengrocer's, and Mr. Lee, the next one, used to be a household decorating shop, and the one with the sign on used to be a Miss Nice, and she used to sell pencils, paper, and all kind of stationery stuff. And now on the opposite side, on the north side of the High Street, we see N. Kenwood and Son, and this is a wine and spirit merchant. And this gentleman used to buy his wine in by the barrel, and then he used to blend his own wines and bottle them. And he had quite a big business there with wines and spirits. And then next door to this gentleman was the Aries furnishing shops and printers' works. And here we are with a picture of the actual printing works, which is next door to the wine merchants. Now, this was started by old Mr. Airy, and there used to be a Mr. Alexander that was the main boss of the printing works, and everyone used to get their billheads and things printed by Aries, of course. Nowadays, it's the Wealden Business Centre. Now, here's a shot of the Mr. Aries taken from the east side of the High Street, and the balcony up above there, Mr. Airy used to hang carpets over the top, and the lady standing on top of the balcony could well be Mrs. Airy. The one with the blind, of course, is the wine merchants, and then came the printing works next door. Now, our next shot that we shall see will be a shot of Airy's front, looking from right across the High Street opposite, and you can see all the chairs and furniture standing outside the shop for sale. It looks like if there's an old iron bedstead standing there, probably second-hand for sale. And he ran quite a thriving business there, and of course was taken on with Mr. Saunders. There's the Wealden Business Centre as it looks today, and of course this is Aries Furnishing Shop. Now, Aries Furnishing Shop was actually burnt down in 1972. Now we've come across from Aries Furnishing, looking westward along the High Street, and this is the original Caffin's garage, which was next door to the Union Church, of course. There's another shot of it here, and there was plenty of sign writing. I guess Mr. Stretfield probably done all these signs for Caffin's, but I don't know, of course. And probably these cars outside are either new cars or second-hand ones on show, and hoping that somebody would come along and buy them. Later, they took over Mr. Ryder's garage and, of course, moved along near the fire station. We've now come next door to Aries on the other side of the road, and the first shop used to be a butcher's, which was Mr. Malpas. And then the next shop along, the butcher's shop is now the Alliance in Leicester. And the next shop along was Moore the fishmonger, which is now the Woolwich. And then Deeprose came along, and he was a greengrocer. And the far distance one next to Barclays Bank was Long, Fry and Company, and they were the outfitters for clothes and all that kind of thing. The vehicles look a bit ancient, don't they, standing on the side of the road. Now here it is And there we are, which used to be the butcher's shop, which is the Alliance and Leicester, and then the woolage next, which was the fishmongers. And now, if we turn on to the other side of the road, we see a shot of the Union Church, and in the corner there, Cornerstones, which used to be Watson's and Company. Now, have a look at those old bikes there. They look pretty ancient and upright, don't they? And of course, there's no footpaths much, and there are even trees on the left-hand side here. And these two chaps standing there watching the photographer, I suppose. Now, our next shot will be what it looks like today, and here we are. The Union Church, of course, hasn't changed at all, except that the hedge which ran along in the previous photograph is now got the iron railings along, and we've come to the Barclays Bank. Now, Barclays Bank, this photograph was taken in 1907, and there's a bullock cart outside, or an oxen cart if you like to call it that. And I remember my old mum used to say that she did remember seeing the bullock carts bringing up the coal from the railway goods yard and delivering it to different places for heating purposes. And I don't think the building itself is altered much, except the windows and things have been changed, especially downstairs where the actual bank is. Then next door to the bank there used to be the Red Cross Hall, and then a garage, and here's a shot of the garage here with the sign outside, and this was the same man, Mr. Charlie Ryder, that built the big garage along the High Street. But of course this is long before he built the garage along the High Street where Caffins are today. Here's another shot of Charlie Ryder's shop with bicycles standing outside, so I guess he did a bit of everything, bicycle repairs, car work and everything. Next door, his wife had this shop as a millinery shop, and it was called Vera. And of course the next door building has now been turned into another shop. And now, of course, there's Parsons, what was the Red Cross Hall. And we've come to the National Westminster Bank, as it used to be in 1921. Somewhat different to what it is today. And even this shop, or bank I should say, has got a fence in the front, so they keep their frontage private. And here we are here today with the post office and Lloyd's Bank and the library, and then next door to the library is what the Westminster Bank looks like today. Now from here we're going back to the corner where Cornerstones is, and we'll see a shot of what it used to look like before Cornerstones was here, or Watson's building was here. And you can see the sun blinds there on that clothing shop, which was Long Fry and Company next door to the Barclays Bank. But there's no buildings on the left-hand side of the High Street. Now there's another photograph looking down Station Road, where we're coming down here. And of course horse and carts are all the go. There's not many motor vehicles around, and you can just see the station houses in the middle of the picture here, right down in the far bottom there, which are still there today, of course. Now we've come down a little lower, and the first shop on the left here used to be Kerridge's, and they was a furniture shop, and they also had a shop in Halsham. And next door to that is the chemists, and still the chemists today, of course, Proctor's. And you can see a motorbike and sidecar standing there, and that was Proctor's delivery thing, what they used to take out the medicines with. And look at that old-fashioned lorry standing down there. It's standing outside of Neve's, the ironmongers that used to be there. Now it's all boarded up today. Now this is Hogbins, which is opposite Proctor's chemist shop, and these Hogbins, the building was built in 1913, and it's a grocer's shop. And then it was turned into a clothing shop, a gent by the name of Mr. Turner, and then Merrymead Florist Shops took it over later, and now of course it's Wildblood's, the electrician shop and TV shop. And now here we are right outside of Wildblood's and looking at all the new shops that was built here, and that where those two cars are standing outside used to be Neve's, the ironmonger's. Now we've come outside of the recreation hall, which was built in 1909. Now there used to be two shops on either side of this. Now on the left hand side there used to be a Mr. Stevens, a jeweller's shop and watchmaker, and here he is standing outside of his shop. And on the other side of the State Hall there used to be a Mr. Crisp, a chemist's. Later he moved to the High Street, and Proctor's also moved up into his old shop. Now here's a shot looking across from Marston's Lane, and you can see the Union Church in the far right hand corner, and then Harry's and all the other shops all on the north side. There's nothing built on the left side at all. And this white thing in the front here is one of the old natural gas wells, and behind that is Neve's the ironmonger's. Now as we moved down, come to the Station Hotel, the back of it, and this was built in 1895 and it was demolished again in 1984. And of course now the Budgeon's supermarket has been built on top of the same place. Now here we are, a shot of the Station Hotel, the front part this time. It looks as if there's a foxhound hunt going on. And here we are again. This place is now all deserted and waiting for the demolition people to come up, and they've certainly arrived now and started tearing the place to pieces and making it look rather gaunt. Then the men went on their lunchtime, they went away on their lunchtime and left a little fire going inside, burning up rubbish and stuff, and this rubbish seemed to catch hold of all the woodwork that was still left in the building, and went into a big fire and really roared up through the building, because there was a nice draft going up through there with no roof on it, and it really got really going, and it was beginning to cause quite a bit of heat and commotion there. There's the old sign still standing out there, they haven't taken that down yet, but the old fire was really getting a good hold, and someone rang the fire brigade, of course, and along came the fire brigade, and it wasn't long before these chaps started getting their hoses out and getting the old pumps going. But it caused quite a bit of a commotion here at the time, and there was quite a few people on the pavement here watching all the goings on and putting the fire out and etc. They began to wonder whether the heat coming through this gap here in the building was going to cause any trouble to the building next door, which was still occupied, of course. So they decided to wash down the paintwork of the next door place to keep it from blistering or catching fire. And they started off with one hose and seemed to be getting on, but the fire still seemed to rage on. There was too much draft coming through the windows and things, and all the windows, of course, had been broken with the demolition, and also the fire didn't do much good, so they brought in another hose and finally finished it off. And then the demolition people brought their digging machine up, and he started to knock down the remainder of the old Station Hotel. He had to go at the side wall, and it gave way quite easily, and half the wall just fell down in no time at all. And then he moved his digging machine along, and finally he came round to the front. We see we got one of our local policemen standing there. he moved it along and he tried to push the front down, but that didn't seem to want to give very well. It seemed to hang on, and why, I don't know. I suppose the other seemed to go down easier because there was more fire that end, perhaps, and it had made the mortar and that go a bit soft. But anyway, he had another go at this corner and some of it came down, and then I think finally he moved his position and gave it a big push, and down it went. This is all that remained. And it wasn't very long before the building people started to move in. They have already started to move in now. And they started leveling off the land with this digging machine. And soon they was putting in the concrete footings. They dug out the entrance way, the back way that goes into Budgeon's car park. And well, things began to move quite quickly, and within a few weeks they had started putting up the they got the foundations in, and they'd started putting up the uprights that was going to hold the new Budgeon supermarket up. And now this is what it looks like today, all built up and finished and totally different to what it used to look like. This corner has changed completely. Now, the old station houses are still there. Now, here's an old photograph, very early photograph, of the station approach, and there's no houses or shops on either side of this roadway, and there's the railway station. That's the only building there is between the Budgeon's corner and the railway bridge. Here's another one of the Heathfield station. Now, this station was opened in 1880. And of course it closed in 1965. It was called the Cuckoo Line, by the way. Rather apt, because we used to get a tremendous lot of cuckoos around about here during the springtime, and they was on all day long and crack of dawn. Now the station, when it was finished, it was left empty for a long time, and then it was taken over by a gentleman, and he called it something special. He also had the postbox renewed, as you can see just by that white car, but it didn't last very long, a few years, and it was gone. Now on the other side is the Temperance Hotel, and this was built in 1900 by Mrs. Avard, and you can see Mr. Avard standing out there in his shirt sleeves, and they used to do bed and breakfast for the travellers. And then later on they decided to close that shop and move over to the other side of the bridge on the Walden Thorns side, and that was in 1924 when they had this part built. Of course, this is what it looks like today. The old Temperance Hotel, which is opposite the railway station, of course, was taken over by the co-op when we had a co-op in Heathfield. Now we're looking at the downside tunnel part and looking down on it, and there's the old water tank that used to supply the engines for filling up their tanks when they arrived in the station. And there's a gasometer next door, and that used to be filled up with natural gas, and it did light the station up. It was first found in 1896, and by 1898 the whole station was lit up. And this is the actual gas well point, and the gentleman here is burning off the excess gas. Now, they did have some medallions made for the coronation of the King and Queen, and it was June the 26th, 1902. And it says there, natural gas first used for lighting. And they also made an aluminium one at the same time, and it was lit up on balloons. And whether you've got a prize for the balloon that went the farthest, I don't know that. But it does tell you that gas carried me from Heathfield, Sussex. Now, this is the south side of the railway station, showing the walkways on the up line and the down line, and also the one that goes across the railway line, of course, from the station. And here's the actual station staff. which was done in 1918. And now, the one man, the station master with the bow tie, he was a Mr. Bridger. And then next door to him, the man with the trilby hat, was Mr. Port. And the next door to him was a Mr. Humphrey. Now, behind that Mr. Port with the trilby hat is a Mr. Kent. Now, here's one of the old trains filling up water. This is just by the Warden-Thorns Bridge. And this is what it looks like today, of course, with all the building materials and whatnots from the industrial estate. And of course the walkway used to come across straight in front of me here. Now here's another shot of it in the olden days with the little signal box in the corner here. And here's one of a train actually coming down. Here's a shot of the lines coming out of the station towards east, going towards Eastbourne with the old signal box and Apex Mills. There's another shot here of the Apex Mills looking down Station Road. But there's no buildings on the right-hand side, such as the garage, C&S garage, or Alcorn's the builder's yard. You can see a few trucks in the goods yard waiting to be loaded or unloaded, and see the hill going up to Budgeon's. Now this is a later shot of the actual same thing, and you can see the Apex Mills, and Scats used to be in the top part here, and now of course they've gone down below, and the electronic company's in taken over. Now this shot of the actual goods yard, and in the top right hand corner there are trucks there, and that is the actual coal wharf where all the coal used to come. And then you will see a photograph of the actual coal wharf, and then you will see what it's like today. And then we should go to Eastbourne to look at a cine film where a train is coming up from Eastbourne to Tunbridge Wells West and then back to Heathfield again. You see, this is all built over. strip on the steam trains, and they were the last trains that came up through. Now we've come to the diesel trains, and the line was closed in 1965. We've now come down Gill Road, and we've come to the little bridge down Gill Road, and the first photograph there showed you as it used to look like, and it looks like this today. And they've built a footpath along the right hand side of the bridge here. And on my right hand side, of course, is Swains Way. Now we've come up Gill Road a little farther, and here's a shot of the actual railway bridge crossing the Gill Road. And on some of these photographs it was called Sandy Cross Lane, but of course the Sandy Cross Lane is on the other side of the main road. Now here we have another shot here, and another one again with the train actually passing over. Looks like a goods train, but it could have been, maybe not, I don't know. All the white on the thing, of course, is snow, because the photographers used to like going out photographing for postcards during the winter. This is what Gill Road looked like after the bridge had been taken down, and it was just the uprights left of the bridge. Now, of course, it's totally different. This is Gill Road today, and the road has all been made up and footpaths and new street lighting put down, and that in the far corner where the trees are overhanging was where the bridge used to be. Now this is a photograph looking from Gill Road across Leaves' Common, or Wards and Thorns, to the High Street, and the trees in the front is where the Gill is. And of course this field in front here is now all built on with bungalows, and is Swains Way. You can see a cow in the far right hand corner. Now this is another shot taken from the railway bank, looking up towards Tillsmore Road, and there are the houses that run along Tillsmore Road there in the far top of the picture. There's a cow shed and whatnots in this field, which used to belong to a Mr. Leaves. Now we've come up to Sandy Cross itself, and this is in the Alsham Road, or Theobald's Green Road, and you can see the old windmill there, which used to be at Sandy Cross. Now this windmill was taken down at the beginning of the First World War in 1914, and here's another shot of it, and you can just see a man walking up the road there, and actually he's carrying a bucket, and he used to have to take his water from the mill where they had a well and take it to Sandy Cross Cottage, which is right on the corner of Sandy Cross Road there, and he lived there, but they hadn't got any well or water facilities, so that was quite a job taking water each day from the mill. This is what it looks like today, almost the same shot. And of course behind these trees, which you are almost in the middle of the picture now, used to be the mill, and there's that Sandy Cross Cottage right on the corner of Sandy Cross. Of course there's no crossroads there now, of course, because Gill Road's been closed. Anyway, if you come along on the left hand side of this road, there's a bungalow along here almost opposite the mill. Has still got one of the old grindstones that used to grind the corn and that in the mill, and they've got it as kind of a monument in the garden, and a few flowers growing in the middle of it. Now we've come right down Sandy Cross Lane going towards Old Heathfield, and there's this host house here which has been rebuilt, and it's now a living accommodation. There's a bloke going up there on a push bike. This is what it looks like today. The host house has been completely redone, and new windows and everything, a new roof and everything has been made, and it's a living accommodation now. Actually on the top there is a wind vane. We've now come back up to the Sandy Cross corner, and there's a shop on the left hand side as you come from the windmill up towards Heathfield. It used to be called the Sandy Cross Stores, and it was a grocer's shop. We've now come a little farther up the road, up Alsham Road, and the little white building at the top there where those two ladies are used to be called Box Cottage. It's been taken down now, of course. And this house on the right hand side with all the topiary is called Yew Tree Cottage, and actually the cottage is to the right of the photograph on the bank, and the little shed place there used to be a little shop. Now we've come to Elsham Road Shopping Centre, and the first shop, of course, today is Balcomb's, and then the post office, and the fish shop, and the butcher's, and then Barclays, the funeral parlour. And you can see there's trees in front of all these shops in those days. And now this is the first shop, which is now Balcomb's, and it used to belong to a Mrs. Francis, and she was a draper. And she also had a shop at Horham at one time. And then afterwards she moved across to the other side, which is now the cycle shop. And her son took it on and turned it into an ironmongery kind of a shop, and had a petrol pump outside which was hand driven. Now here it is today, with Balcomb's on the right hand side of the photograph, and the post office and the butcher's, and finally Barclays. And the shop on the right hand side over there where that red car is was Mrs. Francis. Now the shop next door, which is now the funeral shop, used to belong to a Mr. Paris, and he was a pastry cook and baker, and he gave these plates away at Christmas time, and I presume my mother must have had a Christmas cake from him or something to get one of these plates. And they're quite nice plates. They were quite nicely made with his name and all on it. It says from Mr. Paris, pastry cook, Heathfield, and a Merry Christmas on the top. Quite a nice little plate to keep as a souvenir. Now we've gone from there onto the other side of Elsham Road, where the cycle shop is, and this old photograph here shows some kids outside the shop, and the shops here used to be a Mr. Pattendon, where the paper shop is now, and next door to that used to be a Mr. Bishop, and he had a little hut on the end of this the shop there, and he used to mend shoes and boots and do all that kind of repair work, where his wife ran the shop inside and sold shoes and boots and all that, Wellingtons and all that kind of thing. Farther up you can see the Prince of Wales on the Prince of Wales corner there. Now we've gone up the Elsham Road a little farther, and if we look on the right hand side of the Elsham Road here, we see these houses. These haven't altered much actually, and the first house which sticks out towards the road is Chimley's, the veterinary surgeons, and this used to be a kind of a nursing home at one time. And then you go up to the next house along, which is the wine shop, and on the corner there you can just see the sun blinds sticking out, and this used to be a baker's shop. Here's one looking down the Elsham Road at the same shops with their sun blinds out. Now on the right hand side here, Mr. Hillier had a shop built, and where this fir tree is here, there used to be Hillier the photographer, and here it is. And he did most of the photographs and cards that you see about nowadays, the old ones. You can see Hillier on the bottom of them mostly. And luckily for me, my father took this shop over after it was up for sale. Before my father took it over, it was a gentleman's and ladies' hairdressers by the name of Tissa. And now I took the shop over from my father in 1970, and then after I retired, the Heathfield Motor Centre took it over, and they had it for a few years, and then they decided that they'd want to extend their business a bit more and more frontage to their business, so they decided to take my old shop down, and here we are with a shot of the actual shop, and part of it's already been taken down, and they're working on it now. And it didn't take them very long. There was about 2 or 3 days, and they soon made short work of my old shop, and took it away in sections, and I believe it was rebuilt somewhere else. As I say, in a few days the whole shop was taken down, and this is what it looks like with no shop at all. There's only just the floor there, and they'd already got a great big workshop built at the back. Now we've come up to the Prince of Wales corner, and the shop on the left is Carlos the wine merchant, and this is what it looks like today. And now we've come up a station road, and what the Chinese shop is today used to be a John Cat. Now this John Cat and his wife had a greengrocery, and now we've come up to the top of Alexander Road, and this is what Alexander Road used to look like before the new road was built right through these houses. And now, of course, where these houses are is car park at the top of the Alexander Road. There's a shop taken from the top of my roof looking down towards the Prince of Wales, and as we pan round to the right you'll be able to see what it used to be like. There's no road going straight across like there is today, and these are the gardens in those three houses that used to be on the corner of Alexander Road and Park Road. Quite a difference as it is and what it is today. Times do change. Now we've come along to the south side of Alexander Road, and where I'm standing at the moment is where the little miniature roundabout is, and this is what it used to look like. It used to be a three-cornered green piece of land in the centre of the road, and you could go right round it. And of course the road that goes into the housing estate below Alexander Road, wasn't a road then, it was just a rough entrance, and this is what it looks like today. I'm filming from the that rough entrance where it used to go into fields at one time. Now the big house in the centre of the picture there is no longer there. Of course, it's been taken down. Now we've come to the Welcome Mission, as it used to be called, and today it's called the Welcome Church, Evangelist Church. And that windmill on the left-hand side belonged to a Mr. Rummery, and I believe he used to run machinery with it when the wind was strong enough, I suppose. And I guess he did quite a lot of work with all that power. Now this Welcome Mission was built on each side, and it was built, the first part of it was built in 1900, and now it's quite a big church with all the extra built on each side. This is, now I've turned round and we're looking up Alexander Road towards the top of Alexander Road, and it hasn't altered much from this old photograph. There are some bungalows in between this biggish white house here and the next one up along the road now. And it's gone from here down Marslands Lane and up to the top of Marslands Lane where it runs into the Heathfield High Street. And this is an old photograph of Britannia Mills that used to stand on this corner. This mill, original one, was burnt down in 1907, then rebuilt again. And of course it all used to do all the grinding of the corn and all that for farmers. Now we've come up the Muttonall Hill, and this is a shot with an couple of old-fashioned cars coming down the road, and where this man is on the left of him would be where the Roman Catholic Church is today. Now we've come right up to the top of Muttonall Hill, and on the left here is this little shop which is a hairdresser's today, ladies' hairdressers. And this used to be a little bootmaker's shop, and the lady, Mrs. Turner, used to sell boots and shoes and all that kind of thing. And the old man used to have a little hut on the side of the house here to do all the boot repairs and everything else. Now we've come to the Heathfield Tower, and this is where we must finish off this little film about Heathfield from old photographs and postcards, and what it looks like today.